Hello, welcome back to my Let's Play of Flotilla. Last time we took out a couple of pirate ships. One of them was a torpedo gunship, our first encounter with that kind of ship in this Let's Play. And that all went pretty well. I handled it quite well there. We got this upgrade immediately afterwards. Armour that increases the resilience of the vulnerable bottom of one of our ships. So I just whacked on one of the destroyers there. And now we press on to another world and see what happens. We've found a space derelict with colonists cocooned in the walls, alien style. They want me to kill them. So I could wait for a cure to arrive, or I could put them out of their misery. So I do that. Hey, they asked nicely, and I'm nothing if not a helpful person. So that didn't seem to benefit or hinder us, so let's move on. I wasn't sure about that world, so I went for Snows, just because the name reminds me of snooze. That made me laugh. Foul space pirates who want to steal our flotilla. No choice but to go into battle. Okay, so we're up against two ships here. They're the yellow ships over there, and it looks like two beam frigates. And we're in a position where we start quite a lot lower down than those beam frigates, so conventional wisdom, based on my experience with this game, would have it that they will probably dive towards us and roll over, so that their reinforced top is downwards towards our current position. So, as you probably guessed, my strategy here is to climb as quickly as possible, but not fly towards them. I nearly set a course straight towards them there, but I'm going quite markedly off to one side here, because beam frigates are quite fast, and if they close on you, you're screwed, because beam weapons, unlike all other weapons, I believe, will cut through even the armoured side of your ship. They do reduced damage, but a couple of blasts from a beam weapon, even on your armoured side, is enough to take you out. Certainly with a destroyer, because destroyers don't have a lot of health anyway. So rather than flying straight at them and climbing, I'm going quite markedly off to one side and climbing, on the assumption that the beam frigates will try to close on me anyway. So if I fly too much towards them, I'll probably end up too close. And here I'm dropping this one quite a lot, because as I say, I expect those beam frigates to drop down towards me, and I want to take this lower ship down a lot, so that it's not caught too close to them. It's easy to be caught out by beam frigates by not moving yourself far enough. It's happened far too many times. And as I anticipated, they're both rolling here. So the upper one of our destroyers should hopefully be able to land a good few hits on them. Again, I'm doing post-commentary here, but it's been days since I played this particular game, so I can't remember exactly how this plays out. So it'll be an interesting experience for me. Didn't manage to land any hits. Oh, I think I took a flank move with that ship, so it wasn't shooting anyway. Not a bad choice. Lets me manoeuvre well, and there's a good chance that we wouldn't have scored any hits there anyway. That's a brave move, flying straight towards them. Do I stick with that? I go for focus fire here. I think, assuming that the beam frigates will continue in their current course and maintain their current orientation, so they will get closer, basically underneath this destroyer anyway. So if I just keep hammering away at them with as much fire as possible, I might be able to take one of them out in one go. This one down here seems to be the one they're aiming for, but whether they'll change their course, I don't know. Not moving this one very far either. Slightly overconfident perhaps, but I think my thinking there was that they're not going to get close enough to that ship to do any damage anyway, so I will just sit it there and kind of bait them into continuing to descend and hopefully leave themselves vulnerable to the higher of our two destroyers. I think score some hits there. No, not quite. There we go. Land some good hits on the weak side of that beam frigate, but not enough in that one turn to take it out. But so far we haven't really been threatened by these beam frigates, but it is getting to the point now where the range is becoming quite extreme, so I think I decide to move a little closer here, which could get me into trouble if they suddenly change their plans and start climbing towards this destroyer, because between me descending and them climbing, they could come within beam range, which would be very, very bad. But I decide to take that gamble and descend, roll over, even though it won't help me much if they come within range. Continue shooting at that leading beam frigate. They're getting worryingly close to this particular ship, so I go for a flank move and just pull it way, way back, and try to go for a confusing move, one that they wouldn't predict, and pass almost underneath them. Hopefully not so directly underneath. Oh no, I changed my mind. I was going to say, passing directly underneath, you risk leaving yourself exposed. So I pulled off to one side instead. Still landing a few hits on that leading beam frigate. It's almost down. Do I manage it this turn? Torpedoes passing so close to it, but not quite landing. This barrage may hit it though, and there it is, square on the weak side. One beam frigate down. And as always, that leaves us in a much better position, because now we can, hopefully, in theory, we should be able to always have one ship on a vulnerable side of our enemy, because we outnumber it 2-1. So here I'm going for a focus fire move, so not moving very far, and instead just pounding as many torpedoes as I can into the vulnerable underbelly, that's currently uppermost, of that beam frigate. But I'm assuming it's probably going to roll over, since the previous one was destroyed from above, so I'm bringing this lower destroyer, again, not in towards it. I nearly did, but I was very, very afraid in this match of getting too close to these beam frigates. So I climbed the lower destroyer a bit, but my aim here basically is to catch it on the underside if it decides to roll back. Could go either way, but we should be covered, whatever it decides to do. And the key here, as you've probably noticed, taking out beam frigates, particularly when you're against only beam frigates, is to stay out of their range as much as possible, because destroyers do have a range advantage over beam frigates. So landing a few lucky hits here with this lower destroyer as it climbs, managing to just skim some torpedoes round to the vulnerable side there. Didn't achieve much that turn. I'm no master tactician, as you've probably noticed. My strategies are quite simple, generally. Here I'm going to crash into that asteroid if I maintain that course. Move it off slightly to one side, basically to go between the asteroid and this floating bit of debris. I think I was running in search of cover just in case the beam frigate comes after me there. It's one of the things you haven't really seen much of in this Let's Play so far, because it doesn't come up all that often, but that can be a lifesaver from time to time, is these bits of debris and asteroids and things that are floating around can provide you with cover in a pinch. For me it's usually a last resort, but it can be handy. It can save a ship from time to time, so it's always worth bearing in mind the possibility of diving into an asteroid field. Just make sure you don't crash into them. So bringing this upper destroyer very sharply down, because it has a lot of distance to close on that beam frigate. It's not clear which way the beam frigate is going to move. If it decides to descend or continue descending, then it may well be out of useful range of the upper destroyer, so decided to bring that down a bit. And it's rolling back over to leave its underside vulnerable, and now we're in the unenviable position of having both our ships above it which is now its strong side. So didn't play that tremendously well. The beam frigate there made a good decision. So this is going to be quite a futile turn, but it's really just a matter of time until the beam frigate falls. We're just dancing around, seeing how long it will survive for. Unless I cock up and let it get far too close to me, in which case it could turn this around. A beam frigate is one of very few ships that can, with one bad decision by the enemy commander, turn things around completely. So what did I decide to do here? Just kind of head over that way, sort of to the rear of the beam frigate, and again dive sharply, because at this point I have to get either behind or underneath it, and that lower one of my destroyers can just about get down behind it, though not actually underneath it. And the beam frigate is facing towards this destroyer that's hiding in the asteroid field, so at this point I'm just having that one run away, in the hope that the beam frigate will follow it, and leave itself vulnerable to our other destroyer. So this destroyer diving very, very quickly, hoping to score some engine hits on the enemy frigate. Does it? Hard to tell. Doesn't look like I'm going to land any torpedoes here. The beam frigate has been rotating somewhat as it adjusts its course. Oh, but we got a lucky hit on there. And even if we don't score any more hits this time, we should be in quite a good position on the next turn to sweep in behind it. Very much like this, in fact. Coming right in behind the beam frigate there. But again, I almost went very close behind it and then thought, all it takes is for the beam frigate to switch its targeting to this destroyer, and I will fly straight into death. So decided to hang back a bit, continue using the destroyer's range advantage, and again just kind of running around with this other destroyer, trying to keep the asteroids between us and them as much as possible. Still using an attack move though, popping off a few torpedoes towards the enemy beam frigate, just in case for some reason it rotates, maybe to attack the other destroyer, or in some sort of manoeuvre that leaves it vulnerable. You never know when there's going to be a brief exposure of the weak side. So again, not hugely scoring hits, but this barrage looks like it will land right on the beam frigate's engines. And actually the ship behind the asteroids managed to land a lucky hit there and hit straight on the engines. Yes. And I think that torpedo that's about to land is probably going to take out the beam frigate. So at this point, it's really just a matter of backing that up. Accidentally selected flank move there, and then went for focus fire, which was what I intended in the first place. And I'm basically just taking advantage of the fact that the beam frigate is probably going to die before my next barrage even gets close to it. So just popping off as many torpedoes as I can, and again keeping this destroyer over here out of the way so it doesn't get caught by the enemy. And there it is. The last couple of torpedoes from the previous barrage take it out just like that. 2 beam frigates down, and neither of them even managed to open fire. On the whole, went pretty well. So this adventure's going a lot better than the first one. Rejoin me the next time for more Flotilla.